Hello, everyone. We are live with the VeloDB webinar. Let's see, we have attendees trickling in. Excellent, excellent. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us for the exciting GA launch webinar of Apache Doris 4.0. This has been hardening in the open source community for the past several months, and we're proud to announce that it is finally live today, available in all of our form factors, including cloud version. If you're curious about how that one is referred to, it is referred to as the version 26 for the year 26. And today we're going to go through all the great features that comes with this release, how it evolves us beyond real-time analytics into the agentic era, as well as all the cool use cases that you can use these features to hopefully help you with the problems that you're solving today. After we're done with the announcements of our features and uses, we're going to go to one of our partner, Ling Hua, the co-founder of Cocoa Index, who's going to share with us her experience building with the Apache Doris 4.0 for real-time context engineering. And then finally, Apache Doris 4.0 story doesn't just end with the 4.0 release. We actually have the next chapters already in the works, Apache Doris 4.1. And that release will go into the open source version in the next 2 weeks, targeting April 10th. So be on the lookout for all those new capabilities there. And you'll hear from our PMC chair, Mingyu, on those capabilities towards the end. Let's get started. So, a couple reasons why this really matters. This is the first time we're fully supporting our hyper search analytic process with one engine, combining full text search, vector search, SQLs, and aggregations all together. Has over 9,000 plus improvements over the 4.0 to the 4.04 release in the open source community for hardening, with over 200 community members contributing. So really, really want to thank the community as they test out this new feature, new release, and help to work with us to harden it. But that's not it, because it's also ready to support AI workloads. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So primarily, a lot of these capabilities to support those AI workloads fall across these 6 themes: the pure capabilities, the search, the adjacent capabilities that's going to improve retrieval, some upcoming capabilities to improve performance that will also trickle into supporting retrieval workloads, as well as a number of integration that are going to be necessary to bring a lot of the new context engineering and knowledge store capabilities into production at the enterprise level. So start things off. Vector search is the foundation for retrievals in many organizations and solutions today. And just to kind of reiterate, we're now fully supporting vector indexes, starting with HNSW, with the IVF indexing coming out next month. But it just doesn't end there. In addition to supporting these indexes, we also support something called product quantization, because oftentimes these indexes take up large amounts of memories. And if you're able to do quantization, whether as converting from an 8-bit or 4-bit, you could massively lower the amount of memories that you use. And very importantly, in the 4.02 open source release, this is a capability that's included in the current one. We are also adding index-only scans. This is really critical for scaling to large-scale deployments, because you can have your chunked data separate from the indexes, so that you can still get that fast retrieval by having the indexes close to compute in the VeloDB control storage, but then actually have your raw chunks and embeddings stored in a external location, which could be in a lakehouse, which could be in the separated disks, compute and storage that we provide. But more importantly, one of the open source items that's coming to this, related to this, is the ability to do hybrid search, vector search on iceberg tables. So really cool to democratize these capabilities, not just to Doors, but to also the surrounding ecosystems that include VeloDB and Apache Doors. The next thing, exciting capabilities I want to share is AI functions. Think of this as making it so that you can leverage LLM calls and workloads easier from the database directly. Traditionally, oftentimes, if you wanted to call IAM functions on those texts, you may have to use Python to do some extraction, to glue together certain workflows. But now you can actually call this directly from your SQL editors. You can see the example over here on the right where you can use a select ID, and then from there you can run an AI classifier on those columns that you wish to analyze, saving massive amount of time to stitch together solutions. And this is a widely accepted method as we see others uh, are using other databases providing this feature, as well as is being used for many different things, starting with data governance to do data masking. So you can, if you can analyze the content of a particular column, you can better to apply ABAC governance to your solution, ABAC being attribute-based access control. Some new evolution that have dual use is a new search capabilities that really try to adhere to the Elasticsearch style query language. So if you're familiar with using Elasticsearch and you wanted to give VeloDB a try for searching through your logs or constructing different applications with search needs, you'll find that the syntax and the way of searching through VeloDB is quite similar. We have and or not multi-value release in the 4.0 release. We also added additional capabilities such as default operators, but most importantly, the Lucene Boolean mode, must, should, must not. So you don't really have to change your use of syntax. And something that I'm also going to talk about next is the BM25 min scoring so that you can actually rank across document of different length over enhancing search over just using inverted indexes. So a lot of this will help you to hopefully reduce your cost of operating, monitoring, and observability in your stacks while adhering to the way that you're currently operating without having to change your behaviors very much. Now, since I mentioned BM25 scoring invariant index, this is something else that we're adding to the 4.0 release, and this being the BM25 relevance scoring. This is very important in our hybrid search approach because it allows us to perform a keyword search, re-ranking, in addition to vector search. This is the capability that's really going to minimize the vector space you have to search through if you're able to uh, filter out the exact match, aka negative filtering, or if you're looking for an exact keyword match, you can apply just the keyword match and then do the semantic traversal afterwards. So massively increases the flexibility that you can actually perform hybrid search for retrievals. And this is critical for context engineering because it not only improves your accuracy, it also reduces your cost and it allows you to do exact, almost like KN-like match rather than just approximate match. Also, very exciting along this lens is our custom analyzer pipeline. We know that we have users worldwide that are working in different languages. So having the ability to be able to parse through these different accents and characters will help hopefully to make retrieval for those particular texts a lot easier as well. All right. Coming up to some features that are going to have more lasting effects, not just on the structure performance, which is what this item speaks to today, and this is spill to disk. For a long time, if you wanted to run ETL workload that's extract, transform, load, or you have to really be able to fit all of that data in memory. Otherwise, your queries might fail, and this is one of the reasons why customers typically use something like Spark alongside VeloDB. However, we made it so that if you are working in a multi-stack analytic environment and it just so happens don't have Spark provisioned, we can actually now handle a greater volume of ETL workloads without having to spin up a separate cluster. Oftentimes, it's still best practice to ingest workload in Spark, particularly if you're landing this in a lakehouse environment or you're running in Delta, etc. But for the sake of convenience, if you just so happens to need to do a single time ingest or an ad hoc ingest or ad hoc transform, you can now do so with VeloDB without having to worry about scaling up resources to a much larger size or to provision an additional ETL service or a data transformation load service separately. And some hard numbers. With our spill to disk testing, we were able to run all 99 queries in the TPCDS benchmark on a 10 terabyte data set, only using about 192 gigabytes of memory, achieving about a 1 to 52 ratios of our compute to memory, disk to memory ratio. So really exciting stuff because this also allows us to do vector search and hyper search by not having to load things into memory as well. And that's coming next month, related to how we can have the indexes and the chunks separate out. This is one of those other enabling capabilities that would help with those workloads. Some other type of things for those who are working deep in the weeds. One of the really exciting things we are releasing here is data quality for strict, non-strict, and TriCast. This really allows different industries with different SLA parameters to deal with quality differently. For example, if you have teams that are operating IoT and strict sensitive or compliance level material, you don't have to split this out into separate databases. You can actually do so in the same one because you can use strict mode, which basically makes sure that everything is atomic, consistent, acid, basically make sure that this is exactly once. However, if you're working with IoT devices that has super high throughputs, you can deal with some of the tolerances, then you can turn it into non-strict, allowing you to have that high throughput. Or you can try typecast, basically play around with it without having to add additional risk to your existing jobs. So it really allows you to tune your workloads to best fit your need without having to take on a lot of burden. Some other really cool, exciting performance related capabilities are the top-end lazy materialize and as well as re-enabling SQL cache. For top-end lazy materialize is really all about how do we not read data? How do we skip reading columns and process the minimum amounts of data, especially for updating materializations, so that you can, realize all of the query performances without having to deal with the additional table scans and the data retrievals. And this is all done automatically by the optimizers, so you don't even have to change your queries. And it works particularly well on ultra-wide tables, especially if you have pre-aggregate result sets and such. The other exciting thing that I want to share is our enablement of SQL cache. Again, this is mainly after we fix some of the correctness issues so that now we can cache partial statements and then also make sure that we can have that throughput be available as we cache those SQLs. And it really just eliminates a lot of that parsing overhead. We have one of our customers, Xiaomi, doing 50 million queries a day on petabytes of data, already leveraging these capabilities. So really excited for the rest of our users to try it out. As a quick reminder, we announced this a little while back, but just also to remind folks that 4.0 also come with some hardware optimizations, particularly with ARM's chips. So if you are finding yourself with the choice of using Intel, ARM, or AMD, note that we have hardware optimizations with Gravitons so that you can really get amazing performance without having to deal with the cost of these other chips. As ARM architecture is a bit more efficient, we're able to leverage all of that at the hardware level as well. In some cases, I think we're seeing about 20% less combined cost. And also, even in the single instruction multi SMD uplifts, we see is significant. And other companies have realized the same by leveraging ARM architectures for those compute savings. So really excited if you're looking at switching to a different chipset. Some additional announcements. So now we're getting into lakehouse territory. We really see kind of the agentic and AI movements taking hold in the lakehouse sphere. Everybody wants to be able to share data. Silos are destroying velocity. And also just at the scale of everything has to be, this is the architecture that's likely going to stick around. And the community on Iceberg is exceedingly vibrant. So we're also excited to share some of the developments that we have there as well. Number one is all manifest system tables. So basically, you can now inspect all the metadata by SQL. This is as of the release this week. We're also able to help clean up with the expire snapshots. Basically allows you to kind of keep around snapshot retentions by time. Others who have tried this experience massive savings in their S3 costs simply because they're not keeping around a bunch of these expired snapshots. And also, this allows them to uh, realize some of the performance gains that we have as well. And you'll hear more in the 4.1 about additional things we're doing in Iceberg. Covering over some other areas that of interest, maybe not as exciting some of our lakehouse and AI capabilities, but generally broader cloud and storage supports. So with AWS, we provided the credential provider chains, so allows you to authenticate and rotate your credentials. Well, you don't need to rotate your keys anymore, but basically allow things to propagate well, so that you have to worry about less about permissioning. There's also the Apache Ozone support. So this is open source HCS alternatives for those who are leveraging Ozone. A lot of maybe ex-Cloudera customers who are looking to diversify or migrate. It is now much easier. We also have our own federated catalog. So if you're trying to federate queries to other Doors clusters, you can do so transparently. So imagine you have 5 different Doors clusters in different geos, and you want to union all the data from those tables. You can now federate the queries from a single place. We also have some Hugging Face data access. So this is if you're trying to work with Hugging Face data sets, will be much easier. And also we're supporting the Iceberg REST catalogs via OneLake. So if you are using OneLake, you can now store all of your metadata there as well. And also, we're looking at preloading external data into cache before peak hours. So if you have canned reports that run every Monday morning, less stress in terms of how fast that query needs to run so that reports arrive on time. All right, a couple of things a little bit deeper in the weeds. So for those who are processing a lot of documents, whether you're in the observability space or you're trying to reconcile a lot of different document types from different sources, this just gotten a lot easier since now we're promoting JSON and binaries as first class types. So that in a single SQL statement, it's much easier to work with. Basically, for group by, distinct aggregations, you can just call on them directly. Here's an example of how that works in the editor. And this just makes it so that if you're working with, if you're building your own observability systems over a complex microservice architecture, it just got a lot easier for you to be able to find all your logs, events, and make sense of what is happening without having to deal with a lot of glue, so to speak. And then lastly, towards the end, as we're kind of getting to some further optimizations, one of the things that VeloDB and Apache Doris is designed for is scale and enterprise. With any enterprise and scale, you have a diverse set of businesses and business units, and oftentimes they're all competing for resources. What this multi-tenant resource isolation allows is that if you have multiple teams that are working all on the same cluster, you can actually set CPU and memory limits so that you can always make sure that the critical workloads runs and that teams don't run into each other. And also you can avoid a lot of the noisy neighbor problems with multi-tenancy without having to go single tenants for the critical workloads. So really, if you're operating bring your own cloud fashion, or on premises in enterprise, this just allows you to use your resource a lot more efficiently across a shared analytic system. And then finally, a new set of SQL capabilities for calculating spatial distance. We also actually introduced a Postgres partition sync. This is really a step towards making sure that our Postgres users can easily get their transactional data into an analog environment so that they continue to work. We're continuously advancing on these capabilities so that if you do have data in Postgres and you want to stream that to a real time dashboard, run analytics, have your agents play around with the data, just got that much easier as you don't need something like a Flink CDC to do these type of works. It gets a lot easier with the Doors native CDCs that's already there, as well as some of the other enhancements that are coming. Also on materialized view, we have transparent rewrites on non-partition tables. Again, always making it easier to get those performances without having to deal with the overhead of managing partitions, materialized views, updates, etc. So massive query acceleration without the headaches. All right. So in the last 20 minutes, I just go through the features and how they can be used at a more abstract level. I think a lot of us wants to hear about how it is in reality. So with that, I want to welcome Ling Hua from Cocoa Index to share her experience building with Apache Doris 4.0. The floor is yours, Ling Hua.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool, cool. Give me 1 second so I can present. I see some familiar friends in the panel.
Oh.
So yeah, hi everyone. I'm co-founder of Cocoa Index. We're Doris friends. We're building incremental engine for long horizon agents. So what does the Cocoa Index try to solve is the missing data layer for live AI context. Agent fail without connection to evolve data systems. Data readiness is #1 blocker for AI adoption, and 46 is blocked on integration. So you have source data, goes transformation, and you have knowledge base to serve your AI agent. So Cocoa Index is trying to solve this gap together with Apache Doris. So why today's infrastructure breaks for AI native systems? So Cocoa Index takes it beyond. So there's a lot of limitations for data frames because of the high modality, high fan outs. Kind of data processing and SQL UDFs are complex for the AI native workloads. So Cocoa Index takes beyond that, and especially in addition, Cocoa Index is especially doing well to handle source data change and deploying code change. Why does code change also matters? Suppose you have very large data source, right? And you already have them indexed and processed, and you want to do some minor change in your data processing flow. Like, for example, you're collecting a few more features and stuff like that. So with Cocoa Index, only the updated logic will get reprocessed, only the updated data will get reprocessed. So together, the ecosystem looks like, so you can have source as databases, APIs, message queues, handle structured and unstructured data. You code via a native Python native Node.js way. Declare data transformation, and the data lands into relational database, vector database. So Doris is a great target. And underneath it, so Cocoa Index provides this persistent data pipeline control plane with caching, lineage, version tracking, stuff like that. So just like a quick analogy, like many years ago, people used like server-side render. Basically, every time you compute everything and you wait in front of the computer for the batch job to complete, similar as the data today. But agents are going to interact with your data in a lot faster speed, and it just need like up-to-date information to make accurate decisions and responsible decisions. So a couple of years later, after the server-side render, people are starting to use jQuery, which is like incremental updates because you don't want to wait the browser to refresh. And then when you have more state coming out, React came out, which is like state-driven based declaration framework. So this is like similar as problem as what Cocoa Index is addressing for, like you can imagine it like React or materialized view that is declarative and it is for like data or agent actions. So for agents going to production, you are going to need like reliable data transformation system and a serving system. So in this stack, you can use like a Cocoa Index to connect to any data source, going through data transformation and land to Doris. We collaborated with Doris on one of the examples where we use it for SEC filing, search and analytics, where you ingest like PDFs, markdowns, and JSON facts. It goes through like PI scribe. You use some sort of ways to, because the documents are big, so you kind of split it into smaller, meaningful segments, and you perform some embedding, extract some topics, and we land it to Apache Doris for vector and full text search. The overall pipeline look like this. So you have so this is a visual view for the Cocoa Insight, which is like observability tool for data transformation. So you have different kinds of inputs and going through data transformation, and you collect different information and load it for in Doris for search and analytics. I think I'll pass it back to Kevin, who can talk more about Doris and all of that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Linghua. And please, guys, if you have any questions, we made sure that we have some time at the end, whether that's about Cocoa Index or Apache Doris and the new capabilities. Happy to take those in a second. Now, I want to welcome Mingyu, who is the PMC chair for the open source Apache Doris project. And he's going to be sharing the exciting new releases that comes from 4.1. So give me a second to pull up the slides that he can help to go through.
Okay, I can share my own screen. Is that okay?
Perfect. Yeah, that's okay too. That's even better.
Okay. Okay, wait a moment. Okay, so thank you. And in the last section, I'd like to give you a quick tour of what's new in Apache Doris 4.1, which is the next major release. So the key feature and the improvements that we've landed since the 4.0 release. Okay, so we'll cover 4 areas today. So first is the search and AI. So we've optimized the storage and indexing for like semi-structured data, the full text search, and the vector retrieval. And the second is lakehouse. It's a full lifecycle management for the open table format like Apache, Iceberg, and Payment, along with the major query accelerations. And the third is the performance, it's the end-to-end tuning across the entire query pipelines. And the first one is the core engine, the richer SQL functions and the new data types for the modern analytic workloads. Okay, so let's dive in. So Doris like that you store like JSON to do the full text search and run vector queries and all in one engine. So in the 4.1, so we made this faster and more scalable. And first is the storage format V3. It's a new layout designed for the ultra-wide tables. So if you flatten JSON into like thousands of columns, so V3 makes the file opens and reach much faster. And the second one is the sparse column optimizations. So smarter handling the rarely populated columns in the variant data type. So the query on the wide table, so use far less I/O. And third one is the doc mode. So it's a new write mode that speed up the ingestion and lets you retrieve the full original documents. So great for the log and the trace scenarios, like or storing like large language model outputs. So which may contains like hundreds of megabytes contents. So last one is the BM25 and the on-disk ANN. So BM25 gives you the relevance ranked full text search, with Kevin just mentioned before, and the on-disk vector index let you to run the nearest neighborhood queries without landing everything into memory. So we also now support the string over like 100 megabytes per cell for the large AI context. Okay, so this is the search and AI area. So moving on to the lakehouse. So Doris, the multi-catalog already lets you to query like Iceberg, the Python, the Hive, and many other data sources with the standard SQL, like the complex join SQL. So in the 4.1, we've taken this further with the full write support and the significant performance gains. So under the lifecycle management, the headline feature is the full Iceberg V2 and V3 write and read and write support. So you can now run like insert, the update, delete, and merge into directly against the Iceberg table from Doris. So with support for both the V2 and V3, like deletion vectors and row lineage. So no Spark pipeline required. And on the query performance side, so we introduced like Iceberg sorted write. So we produce the sorted data files that enable file level pruning. So we measure this feature about it will bring about like a 15% improvement on the TBCDS benchmark. So we also added a manifest catch that keeps the parsed iceberg manifest in memory. So bringing the query planning time down to like sub 100 millisecond. So even for a large table. And for the packet format, so we add the page level catch for the decompressed data page. So this decompressed data page will stored in the memory. So it will bring roughly 20% faster on the like a click benchmark. Okay, so and there is a new catch admission control feature, so which let you define the rule-based policy to protect the hot data in the catch from the being evict. So which means that even you do a large queries and the catch in your local disk will not be being evicted based on your policy. Okay, so the next area is the performance optimization. So this release focus on the systematic improvements across the full query lifecycle. The first one is column pruning for the complex type. So like if you have like the struct, the array, or the map columns, so Doris now read only the subfield that your query actually reference. So instead of materializing the entire nested structures, so this reduce both I/O and memory usage. And next is the expression optimizations. So we've improved the evaluation speed of the common pattern, like the case one expression, the non-constant like patterns in SQL, and enhance the partition pruning so that the planner can skip more irrelevant data before execution even started. And the next one is the broadcast join optimizations. So for the broadcast join scenarios, we improve the memory utilizations, which help when one side of the join is small enough to broadcast, but the overall memory budget is tight. And last one is the query catching. So the Kevin already mentioned about the SQL catching, and we now support the two level of query catching. The first one is the condition catch. So it will reuse the filter evaluation result within the same query. And the next one is the intermediate result query, allow the sub expression result to be shared across the different stage of the query plan. So together, these will eliminate redundant computations and speed up the complex analytical queries. Okay, so the finally is the core engine. So Doris 4.1 added advanced SQL feature that reduced the need for like external ETL workloads. So first is the nested. This is a new SQL syntax, so let you to flatten the array into rows. So very useful for analyzing like tag list, the event arrays, or the multi-valued field. And next is the recursive CTE. Support the hierarchical and the graph traverse queries. So those think the org charts, the dependence trees, or the network topologic. And next is the as of join. So that's the nearest time span matching. So which is essential for the time series analytics. So join a fact table to a slowly changing dimension based on the closest timestamp. So last one is the next one is the merging tool. The merging tool brings the full absurd plus delayed semantics in a single statement. So which is the what you need for like the CDC ingestion pipeline. And spill to disk is now enhanced. So large query that would have previously hit the out of memory errors are now completely reliable by the spilling the intermediate data to disk. And last one is the column compression, so give you the per column callback control. So you can choose like a Z, STD, or LZ4 or other algorithms depending on the data characteristic for each columns. And we also bring the two new data types, the timestamp ZT, which is the timestamp with the time zone. It's a new timestamp with time zone type for like cross time zone analytics, and the binary type provide a native raw byte storage, so used for like a protobuf, the Avro payloads, or the embedding vectors. Okay, so that's just a quick overview of what's new in Doris 4.1. So we are excited about these improvements, and we love to hear your feedback. And we are working on this release project. Hope to release this new version very soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ming.
Mhm.
Yeah, at this time, just want to share that this will be going to the open source release in the next 2 weeks. And on the VeloDB side, we're looking to officially support this after community feedback around end of June. So something else for us to look forward to in a couple months. I'm sure you'll hear from us between now and then. Um, Now we have some time. I know that we had Q&A open, but if anyone wants to come off of mic to answer questions out loud, happy to open the floor right now as we have some time. So if anyone wants to just speak up, I am giving permission to folks to come off mute as we speak.
I have one if no one else is going to ask. I was curious, Linghua, are there any customer case studies or anything like any great results that you'd want to share with the audience here that may be hearing about Cocoa Index for the first time?
I haven't prepared for that, but maybe next time I'm happy to share more.
Okay.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, and please reach out to us if you have any questions, and as well as Linghua, happy to connect. As a closing note, let me just pull up some information so that you know where to find us. Um, yeah, just to leave folks with a bit of closing thoughts. Trying to find Zoom to share. So if anyone wants to take a screenshot, wants to just uh, read about the full release notes, let us know what you think, and happy to chat with all of you if you have questions that you reach out separately. If there are no other questions, thank you all for joining today's webinar. I hope you guys enjoy the new sets of features that we're releasing both commercially as well as in the open source community. And last but not least, hearing from Linghua about building with Apache Doris and Cocoa Index as a great tool for real-time context engineering. Thanks, everybody.
And just one more note, we'll be sending out the slides and the recording and some other follow-up resources after this. So if you have questions, you can simply reply to that email and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Have a great